Hello. Yeah, so first things first, last time around I forgot this guy who I had painted. Sort of a space Triceratops spaceman type guy. And actually he was one of the better ones I did in the last set, and so the fact that I forgot him, that was a big mistake on my part. Anyway, today got to thinking about vampires. Now there's a lot of how do vampires or we do a certain amount, we accept a certain amount, especially comic books. Superman's got powers. Okay. And it was like 50 years after that where people started asking, well, how do his powers actually work? And so, vampires, they're legendary, fictional creatures, and they got all these powers. And we're at the point now where, okay, how do these powers actually work? And give me a scientific explanation. Um, That's what I'm going to talk about is science fiction vampires and how they would work with science behind them. Now I'm sure there are have been science fiction movies or books or whatever, including vampiric type creatures. In fact, while I was thinking this over and preparing things, movie the Space Vampire popped up on my YouTube feed. Haven't watched it. Don't know if I'm going to watch it or not. But yeah, so we are inventing science fiction vampires now, just for why not? Um, so instead of just saying, okay, this is going to be a science fiction story with vampires, I'm wondering, give a scientific explanation for how all this vampire stuff would work. So first things first, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Light bounces off of an image. I can see the image because light bounces off it. Sometimes light bounces off an image and off a mirror, and I can see the object's reflection in the mirror. Light bounces off a vampire. I can see the vampire. Light bounces off a vampire and then a mirror, and for some reason I can't see it. So, first things first, your science fiction vampires, they're going to reflect in mirrors, for the most part. I say for the most part because I got to thinking, okay, someone's gonna come whining, but I want my vampires to not reflect in mirrors. And it is actually a good, especially for movies, it's a great effect. Van Helsing, they got the woman, she's dancing with Dracula, and then she looks in the mirror and she's the only one in the room, despite the fact that it looks, completely full. Great effect. So how are we going to do this? So here's how. There's more than one type of light. And some light will reflect off the surface and some will not. Some light will only interact with your eye. So, light bounces off the vampire, goes into my eye, I can see it. Light bounces off the vampire, goes into a mirror. It does not reflect from the mirror because it doesn't, it's a different type of light. I can't see it. And now, in order to do this, though, wouldn't I see a blank spot in the mirror instead of, so this light which does not reflect in the mirror, or, the light which only interacts with mirrors passes through vampires for some unknown reason. So there you got it. Light goes through the vampire, bounces off the mirror, I see whatever's behind the vampire. But the other kind of light bounces off the vampire and I can actually see it. Sort of stupid, but it's the one way I could come up with for how a vampire can not reflect in the mirror but still be seen. Now, so far as fiction goes, for a book I could spend maybe a page or two describing that, and okay, there's your explanation. For a movie, do I want to waste the 1 or 2 minutes describing that? Probably not. So for the most part, for fiction, we're just going to ignore the whole mirror thing altogether. But if we really, really, really wanted to do it, that's how I would do it. Now then, how does vampires work altogether? I would, for a science reason, I would make some sort of virus. And so you get bit by a vampire, the virus invades your DNA, it changes your DNA. This is one thing movies do poorly. If a virus is going to rewrite your DNA, which basically would have to rewrite every cell in your body and turn you into another creature, that's going to take a while. You're going to be feverish for a while. You might even be comatose. It would take at least a week, probably longer, I think. So that's one thing. Now that would be good for the whole, so and so died mysteriously, and then we thought they were buried, and now suddenly we're seeing appearances of them. Yeah, they were turning into a vampire. It took a week or two. So the delay between becoming a vampire and actually being walking around as a vampire would make sense. Yeah, this whole idea he was bitten and tomorrow night he's running around biting other people. Not as good. So the whole viral thing works, in my opinion. Now, along those lines, what about turning into a bat? This is another one I have problems with. First of all, a 180-pound man is not going to turn into a 5-pound bat. Conservation of mass doesn't work. Now, allowing a vampire to turn into a bat-like creature, I'll accept that. And it'll be a human-sized bat-like creature because that's the way it would work. Conservation mass is conserved. Would it be a bat necessarily? Maybe. Maybe not. On that one, I would say bat-like creature because it allows. It doesn't have to be a bat, but it looks like a bat. It can still fly. Has wings. Now, how would that work? For that one, I would say there's some sort of like cascade DNA effect. So the vampire actually has two types of DNA, one which is mostly human, one which is very bat-like, and they are, one's dominant at every time. So I'm walking around, I'm human, want to turn into a bat, then there's some sort of like weird cascade reaction where the bat-like DNA takes over. Now, this would mean that changing into a bat would not be instantaneously. It would probably be a slower process than is sometimes perceived, maybe a minute or two, just because might be a little painful to the vampire too. Just because, again, your body's shifting and you got bone moving about and all this weird stuff. So it would probably be a little painful to the vampire. But it would make for an explanation. And again, it allows a little technobabble in your movie. And actually it allows for a good way to try to, if we can shoot him with this thing while he's transforming, then it'll destabilize him completely and kill him. So it gives an extra way to kill him. Prevents them from turning into a bat too often because there is this extra, they're weaker as they change. So, it's not something we're just gonna throw into the movie or the book, just on and off. Maybe put limits to how often they can do this safely. Starts to make for a better story. Okay, other things. Mist form. Now, my explanation of mist form is it doesn't exist. Mist form would actually kill a vampire. I will get to that later. But people believe in it because Vampires are faster than normal people. They're stronger than normal people. So the idea of how did he get from here to there so fast? Mist form. And he's not really turning into a mist, but I'm speculating on how a vampire would work. Characters in the movie would speculate on how a vampire would work. So they're making the assumption that he takes on a mist form. Why not? The characters are wrong. Um, that's something movies do poorly. Books and movies both do poorly. Is they feel they have somehow the characters have to get absolute knowledge by the end. And no, there's you can reach the end of the book and say, okay, we defeated him. There's still questions about him we don't understand. Um, there's some guesswork in our they'll allow for characters to make wrong assumptions, and then those assumptions will have negative consequences. But then they'll end up finding out why the assumption was wrong. No, the assumption was wrong. We never found out why it was wrong. We were more interested in killing the vampire than in finding out how it works. And so, by the end of the story, there may still be questions about how things work. I have no problem with that as someone watching a movie. I know a lot of people they want all the answers handed to them. Real life, you don't get all the answers handed to you. Give me enough answers that it makes sense, and I can speculate on the rest, and I'm happy. Most people don't act that way or think that way, but that's me. Anyway, so let's get into the killing of vampires then. And to destroy the heart. Period. Doesn't have to be a wooden stake. Now, vampires have great healing abilities somehow. The virus, whatever, it allows them to heal. So shooting them in the heart with a small bullet, it'll damage the heart, but it won't kill them. And they can heal from that. So the wooden stake, basically, you got the organ about the size of a fist. It's generally said. So you got a stake about that big around. You're going to do a lot of damage. You're going to kill them with it. You can do the same with a metal rod. You can do the same with a chainsaw. The biggest problem is getting close enough to get to the heart. Vampires are stronger than humans. They're faster than humans. They've had years to learn how to fight, etc., etc. So it's not a matter of you can only kill them this way. It's a matter of there are several ways to kill them. You just can't get close enough to use them most of the time. Beheading. Now, back to vampire legends. The stake through the heart didn't always kill them. And a lot of the older legends, pre-Dracula legends, the stake from the heart, you were just immobilizing them. And then you were going to leave them in their grave until they decayed away. There were a few stories which actually went down that road. So, it was, and even Dracula, when they killed, Lucy was turned into a vampire, so they had to kill her. They staked her, then they had to cut off her head and put garlic in her mouth and all sorts of other little rituals. So the stake itself didn't kill her. There were other things that killed her. When they finally killed Dracula, they cut his head off. And they stabbed him in the heart. So, for my purposes, anything that destroys the heart will work. But just, some people have done, pencil in the heart, and there he goes. He's immobile now. No, pencil's not enough. Has to be something big enough to destroy the heart, or you can cut the head off. Most things, you think with your brain. Cut something's head off, it's dead. Fire. Fire will destroy most things. Fire can destroy a vampire. I would say on that one, though, you have to make sure you kill him. People can survive being burned. A vampire can survive being burned and then regenerate and heal. So that's not as absolute, but it is one way to go things. You would certainly slow them down because, again, vampires can feel pain. And that was something, even Dracula. He he was scared at times. If you actually read the book, he was scared at times. He knew he could be hurt. He could be weakened. You know, killing was harder, but he knew things would weaken him, so he did avoid certain things. That's from the book, if you actually read it. So there you go. There's three ways to kill him, primarily. And here's where we get back to the whole mist form thing. Is if he's breaking up into a mist, then isn't he in some ways taking his heart apart? So mist form would actually kill a vampire. Now, of course, since we're talking sci-fi here, could we do it to where the vampire has some sort of teleporting power or some way, some phasing power? I'll accept that. You know, again, want to put some limits on it, but sure. You know, if we want our mist form or something close to mist form, our vampire can teleport or he can phase through walls somehow. Again, you're becoming vulnerable when you do stuff like that, so it's not an instantaneous thing, but it's part weakness, part strength. Depends on how it's used. But I will allow for that. Okay. Now, other vampire weaknesses. They have to sleep in their own, like, their coffin has to be lined with dirt from their own grave, and they have to sleep in it. Why? That's what I never understood. None of the legends tried to explain it. Sci-fi vampires, not necessary. Nah. In fact, you had me at the he has to sleep part. Now, they suck blood, they eat, they sleep, so they are actually mortal creatures. You know, they have some sort of mortal requirement at least. Which brings us back to they are actually easier to kill than just this normal ritualistic things that we go through. But again, still not against making it harder to kill them. Just easier than you have to do it this specific way. No, it doesn't have to be wood and stake. It like I said, if we're going to treat them as mortal and make them have to sleep and make them have to eat, then we've got to go all the way and say, okay, they're a little weaker than legends would have us believe. And the reasons why they seem harder to kill is because, again, they're stronger and faster than us, so they are harder to get to. Can't cross rivers. That's something you get from legends mostly, and most books or movies and books just ignore it altogether. That one makes sense to ignore altogether, especially if give me a science fiction reason why a vampire can't cross a river. I don't know. Can't enter a house. This one I'll go with. Or can't enter a house uninvited. I actually bypassed something here. I was going to talk about the whole crucifix thing. Okay, so vampires have psychic power. They can hypnotize you. They can do all sorts of stuff like that. Control weak-willed people, etc. The flip side of that is they don't understand faith. And so, while they're trying to read your mind or trying to hypnotize you or whatever, if you have faith in something, then it disrupts them. So they don't understand. It's not that they are afraid of crucifixes or holy symbols or whatever. It's more along the lines of they don't understand it. It messes with their sight. It's your faith in the object. It's not the object itself, and so it messes with their psychic field or whatever, confuses them. They feel weak. They have to back off and regroup and try to figure out what's going on. But again, they don't understand how faith works, so they will never they will never be able to overcome it. That's our one advantage. Like I say, that's best scientific explanation I can give for why a object wouldn't turn it. So back to the whole going into a house, it's a same principle basically. We don't want them in unless we invite them. Um, we are very protective of our homes and property and stuff. And so, unbeknownst to us, we are actually interfering with them psychically when we don't invite them in. Yeah, we are safe here. And, this is something, if we understood how it works better, we could use it against them and people could outthink the vampire. But we don't, we don't see it that way. So no one's ever figured it out. However, it does prevent them from entering the house somehow. We could also make it that it's just very hard to, you know, like I said, I don't, not wanting someone to enter your house. That's just something. Yeah, this is my property. It's a thing. Yeah, we do it without thinking. So trying to do that on purpose and just okay, I'm going to it's hard. You have to train yourself to do that. So people can't just use psychic powers back against the vampire, but they can use like latent psychic powers. I don't want someone in my house, and I don't know how I'm controlling it or not, but it's keeping him out somehow. And that's something again. As long as the characters don't try to analyze it, then it's not going to be an issue of people using mental powers back against the vampire. Um, so I think that's about it. Um, that's like I said. That's just something we do as humans. We accept something for a while as a form of fiction. Then after a while, we decide, well, how would that work in the real world? Well, this is my quote unquote scientific explanation of how vampires might work in a science fiction universe. That's it, and have a good day.